Hi, everybody. Thanks for being with us today. We appreciate it. This is Tim Andersen, the Appraiser's Advocate, and we're with Movers and Shakers. And today, again, we're interviewing Craig Morley. Craig, how are you?
Good morning. I am doing really well because I'm inside. It was 110 degrees outside yesterday and looking to do the same. So I'm happy to be inside.
Well, that's what happens when you choose to live in the desert, isn't it?
It's exactly right. Pretty warm.
Well, Craig, let me get some shameless marketing out of the way here. Since everybody's watching this on YouTube, please go to the bottom right hand of your screen and click that subscribe button. It helps put grandchildren through college. And then like us if you be so kind. And if you don't like us and tell us why. And we'll see if we can fix something. Now, Craig, you and I have spoken offline about various topics, and you got a question earlier relative to something that most of us probably never think about. Craig, what constitutes a bedroom?
You know, you would think that would be a simple answer. And what we're finding is that we've got lots of anecdotal kinds of requirements that that many think constitute a bedroom. For example, how many times have you talked to someone who thinks that a bedroom has to have a closet in order to qualify as a bedroom?
It's fairly common. I would think so.
Yeah, and that's been one of the kind of the issues that a lot of people think if it doesn't have a closet, it's not a bedroom. And it turns out that's not true. And so oftentimes, if it's got a closet, but it's the size of a coat closet, or it's the size of a small storage room, could that be a bedroom? Well, probably not. And so this came up as an issue for me. I had a real estate agent give me a call and said, what makes a room a bedroom? And they were having some marketing issues where some of their fellow real estate agents are frustrated because they would list the number of bedrooms on the MLS, and number of bedrooms in many areas is a significant search field. And so they believed that by having an accurate bedroom count, it assisted in their marketing. And then they get the appraisal back, and the appraiser says, no, it's only got 5 bedrooms instead of 7 or something like that. And so they are saying, well, how can I define what a bedroom is? And so doing a little bit of research, we went in and looked at the international building codes. We've talked with county assessors. We've looked at information from NAR. We've looked at information from several different sources. And what it boils down to is there's a couple of must-haves. Closet isn't one of them, but it's got to have, according to code, it must have at least 70 square feet. The ceiling must be at least 7 feet high, and there must be some kind of secondary egress, like a window that has an opening of at least 5.7 square feet. And so some of the other things that must have natural light and ventilation, FHA and many of your GSEs would require some kind of a heating or cooling source in that space. And usually, if it's a current construction, it's got to have some kind of a smoke detector or detection system in the room, unless it was built prior to that being a requirement. And so what we find is that while there are some minimum requirements, they're not universally applied by most, or by all, I guess.
From a standpoint of requirements, now you're in Washington County, Utah?
Yes.
Okay, you're in Washington County, Utah. You do a lot of work in Clark County, Nevada, which is Las Vegas. Now, between those two authorities, is there a difference of what constitutes a bedroom?
No, because most of these are using the similar building codes. And the building codes are essentially what is establishing the criteria for what you can label as a bedroom. And so the requirement's pretty similar.
Let's take a look at it from a standpoint of the county assessor. Now, each state has its own laws on how real property will be assessed for ad valorem tax use or tax purposes. Now, again, you do work in 3 states, primarily, well, Utah, Arizona, and Nevada. A lot of that is in Utah and Nevada. So when you go into Clark County to do work in the Las Vegas area and you pull a county building card, is it more or less the same thing that you would get in Washington County, Utah, especially from the standpoint of the bedroom count?
Yes, it generally is. The only thing that we find is that oftentimes, because the assessor is not able to go inside the properties, they're oftentimes relying on either the original plans or upon marketing brochure material. So it's common in Clark County, where you've got a lot of production housing, and the builders allow for some variations on the floor plan, where one plan might show 5 bedrooms, and in fact what they did is they altered one of the bedrooms to be a rec room or a family room or something like that. And so the reality is if the space does not have some level of privacy, if I can't close a door, for example, and have a window that gives me my secondary egress, and it's probably not a legitimate bedroom, because I think most users of these spaces, while they may have a hideaway bed to handle company or something like that, it's not usually going to meet the criteria as a legitimate bedroom. I've got a cabin up in Bryan Head, and we've got a little loft with a railing up there, and we use it as a bedroom loft, but we don't classify that as a legitimate bedroom because there's no way to close it off. And frankly, if you had to climb out the window, it'd be a long drop. So
For those who don't know, Bryan Head is a ski resort in south central Utah. I was going to raise that issue of the loft or the balcony area. In a lot of houses, a lot of 2-story houses, you walk upstairs, and obviously you're going to walk into a hallway, but you walk into possibly what amounts to a really big hallway, and it would be possible, frankly, to build a temporary interior wall and put a bed in there, and maybe even go to IKEA and buy a wardrobe, put it together, and bam, now you got a private room with a place to hang clothes. Is that going to constitute a bedroom?
it might, it depends on how well things are done. Does it meet, does it have the minimum square footage? Does it have the minimum ceiling heights? Does it have, can it reasonably function as a bedroom? You might be able to convert a space like that into a bedroom. But like the answer to any good real estate question is, it just depends.
Yeah, real estate is not what you want to call cut and dried, is it?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I think sometimes we get pretty excited about trying to define what a bedroom is, but I think that the real issue is in defining that bedroom. Does having 4 bedrooms versus 5 bedrooms impact the value? And, or from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, or from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom? By having that defined as an additional bedroom, will that affect the valuation? And that becomes really, as appraisers, that's the thing we're most worried about, is by calling this room that, I come in the front door, I turn to the right, there's a room off the front entryway that has a closet, has a window. has a door. Is it a bedroom? Could be. The reality is and some people use them as a bedroom, but you find in various neighborhoods, these things kind of take on a variety of different uses. And so the impact on value may be significant in one area and may not be in another.
Let's talk about basements. Now, where you live, basements are common. And somebody goes downstairs and they finish off a corner of it, and they put up they build 2x4s and drywall, and they build the necessary walls and the necessary door, and they put kids down there. Is that a bedroom?
Well, if it doesn't have a window that allows for secondary egress, and it really, we don't talk too much about this, but the window's got to be big enough to allow for secondary egress. So back in the olden days, when you and I were kids, they would digging basements was hard, and oftentimes the ceiling heights weren't very high, and the windows were up, 5, 6 feet, and they're maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet wide by maybe 4 or 5 feet. But realistically, you'd have to be a pygmy to get through there. It probably is not if it's got a window, it probably doesn't provide adequate egress and would not really be a legitimate bedroom. The next question is does it matter? And what we find is if you're using all older comps that have similar type conditions, probably doesn't make that much difference, simply because whatever functional issues I've got with the floor plan and with the windows is addressed in the data itself. Where we run into problems is when I'm using comps that have a walkout basement, for example, where I've got direct daylight access out. That can be a significant difference. And the question is that a design element or is it a functional issue? And it might be both, but it's something that you have to take into consideration as you're doing your analysis.
Greg, take a look, or excuse me, let's shift our thinking a little bit and consider what you just talked about, that walkout basement. So somebody puts up a wall or two, and probably not two. There was no permit issued, but it's the 2x4s are into the concrete, and the drywall's properly installed, and the electrical's properly installed. Let's go ahead and just assume that. No closet, no window, but a door. And you can open the door and run out, and there are sliding glass doors facing or on the rear of the house, sliding glass doors, and you can run out. Now, obviously, that window, ingress and egress, is for safety purposes, specifically fires. So the house is on fire, and all you got to do is run out the door and then open the sliding glass doors, and you're outside. Is that a mitigating circumstance that would allow you to count that basement room as indeed a bedroom?
Yeah, usually that will mitigate. And one of the things to keep in mind, we kind of historically have been hung up on the closet issue. And it's been a number of years ago, I was at a FHA course where they were doing an FHA update, and they had pointed out that in Europe, closets just aren't a thing. I mean, they use wardrobes and that kind of thing. And so what we start finding out is that you have some regional characteristics that it might legitimately represent a bedroom, but the local market may or may not respond to it that way. I think you have to use a fair amount of good judgment in doing that. If you've got regional characteristics that will affect those classifications, you probably want to take that into consideration. But the reality is that, yeah, it could be defined as a bedroom because it does provide that egress. You've got, provided you've got the minimum size, it's probably okay to classify it as a bedroom. Now, the question is does the market care? If I'm using that as I want to use it as a den or a fitness room or something like that, And one of the things that we've seen over time is that as family sizes have decreased, and that what we're finding is that the number of bedrooms is maybe not as big of an issue as it was 20, 30 years ago, where family sizes were larger. And so I think the real issue that we're looking at, we're dealing with value. And does that classification impact how the market's going to respond, and will they pay more for it? And if it does, how do I quantify that in some kind of meaningful way?
Okay, let's continue on with that thought. Okay, you got a 3,000 square foot house and you've got a loft. So you walk upstairs and you walk into this open space. Now you could put a TV room in there, you could put a pool table in there, somebody could put an office in there so they could work at home, any number of things. But Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner decide to put a bedroom in there for one of the kids. So Mr. Homeowner is rather handy and he closes it off, and it's built properly. I mean, it's not going to fall down or burn down. And the electrical is, if somebody came out, looked at it, it'd probably pass. So, and they've turned it from a 4-bedroom house now with this construction into a 5-bedroom house, but it's still 3,000 square feet. Now you're looking at it and you say, okay, I'm going to count this as a bedroom just because it's Tuesday and I got nothing else to do. So you say to yourself, all right, now I've got to adjust this house. Now, am I going to adjust for the bedroom count? Am I going to adjust for the size count? Am I going to adjust for both of them? Or am I going to adjust for neither of them? How do you handle what amounts to a homemade bedroom when the size of the house doesn't change and the quality of its construction and condition doesn't change?
Well, one of the things I think we have to do as appraisers is sit back and look and see who is my most probable buyer for the property. And if I'm in a family area where the number of bedrooms is a significant factor, then having that room as a 5th bedroom may in fact impact value. And so the question is you're saying, well, how do I tell? And ideally, and this may not always be possible, there are some ways to work around it, but ideally what I can look at is if I'm in Las Vegas and I've got a property like that, I might have, in fact, I probably have properties that are a model match where either the property has the 4-bedroom with the loft or has a 5-bedroom. And one of the things I think as appraisers we forget to do is after we've gone through and adjusted all of the comparable sales is look at the numbers down at the bottom, and is there a significant variance that I can attribute to a physical characteristic? For example, if I find that by the time I've adjusted this out and I've got a 4-bedroom and I've got a 5-bedroom and I've got a 3-bedroom, and if I haven't adjusted for those bedrooms, and if the numbers down at the bottom are all pretty similar to each other, it's probably telling me that the market doesn't care. I might have individual buyer preferences for one or the other, but the market as a whole doesn't care. Where we run into some really interesting situations is when we get into some of these retirement communities. And we'll get into a retirement community where I will have a 2,000 square foot single level home with 2 bedrooms. And I will go into that same area where they've got a room that is 2 bedrooms and a den, or I've got the same floor plan with 2 bedrooms and they put doors on it and made it a 3rd bedroom and kind of use it as maybe a man cave or something. What we find is in the retirement communities, most buyers, because they don't have kids at home and it's just occasional company that comes by, that extra bedroom's meaningless. They just don't pay. Now you may have an individual buyer where it's interesting, where they would pay more, but the market as a whole, I don't care. Now you'll get into a neighborhood like mine where you've got a mix of families and old people like me, that are there. And you've got a 2,000 square foot home. And if I've got enough older buyers looking in these markets, the bedroom may not make a difference. But if I have an area where it's predominantly families, that bedroom can be a huge factor. So the question is, how can I tell? Now, the one, as we talked about just a minute ago, is your classic paired sales is does the data suggest that there's a difference or not? The other thing that I find is that it's really handy to go in and look at rental data. And if I have access to rental data, and I can see that the 4-bedroom home is renting for more than the 3-bedroom home, I can look and say, gee, they're paying an extra $150 a month because it's got that 4th bedroom. That probably is a good indication that that bedroom is worth something. And if I can extract out of my market a gross rent multiplier, maybe it's 150. And so if I've got 150 times, if my gross rent multiplier is 150 and the bedroom difference is 150, that extra bedroom might be worth $22,000, $23,000. And how did I figure that out? Well, it's the gross rent multiplier times the rental difference, and bang, I've got an adjustment that I've been able to support. I can do that same thing with garages and other things where I can use that gross rent multiplier as a way to support an adjustment. And far too often, Tim, I can't tell you how many appraisals I've looked at where an appraiser has made $1,000 adjustment between a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom home. And I think to myself, where did that come from? If I'm making $1,000 adjustment, why bother? It's a rounding error. Why did I make the adjustment?
Let's talk about the concept of functional inutility. Okay, somebody puts in that 5th bedroom in the loft, and we're not claiming that it's going to burn down. We're not claiming it's going to fall down. But is that house over improved for the neighborhood? Is that house over improved for the market?
And again, it just depends. The reliable answer is it just depends. And part of that is, who's my buyer? If I'm selling to retired older buyer, empty nesters, it may well be a functional problem where I would have to pay to go pull those walls out and put it back into a recreational loft. But in some markets, it may not have any impact one way or the other. I think we have to be in tune with our markets well enough to know if this home in this neighborhood is going to sell to a family, not a problem, most likely. If most of my buyers are going to be older, retired empty nester buyers, might be a problem. Not always, but might be.
Let's talk about what's going on right now. Okay. Now, where you are, you still get out, you're still traveling around 3 states looking at properties, but by and large, you're not going in, you're going into your subject and you're driving past the comps, which is basically what we've all done for the last 50 years. Given the fact that even sometimes brokers aren't going into the houses they list, are we in a position where we can trust the data the brokers provide to us, or do we need to cover ourselves with an extraordinary assumption that the data in the listing, the data the brokers provided, the photographs the broker has provided, etc., are indeed accurate relative to the condition of the house?
I think within the general assumptions within the typical lender-based 1004 residential appraisal report form, there is a general assumption that the information we're getting from third parties is correct. And so I think we're probably not necessary to go make an extraordinary assumption to try to cover that issue. I think where if we run into some situations where it might be property specific, where we're going, I don't know. This house has been added onto. I've got a comp or a subject that's been added onto, and I'm trying. I just don't know the answer to some of these things. I might need an extraordinary assumption to deal with that. We had kind of an interesting thing come up the other day, Tim, where we get a call from a lender. And for many of you, if you don't know, there are two little polygamous communities on the Utah-Arizona border called Hilldale and Colorado City. And we've got a pretty upset lender, because when they called to quote the appraisal fee, we quoted 2 or 3 times more than what we normally charge, and for a run-of-the-mill house. And
I know what you're talking about, but give a little bit more detail. Like, didn't that house have something like 13 bedrooms?
Yeah, so that's the point. Is this house has 13 bedrooms and 13 bathrooms and 7,000 square feet. And I've been in a few of these houses, and they're like a little motel. You got a 3.5-foot hallway with 10 by 10 bedrooms and 5 by 10 bathrooms attached to every one of them. I mean, they realistically, and usually these things it depends. I mean, some of these homes are really nice, and some are painted OSB on the outside. They're in gardens. And so,
Craig, we lost your microphone there. If you say that again, please.
So many of these homes are pretty, they're a good solid C5 quality. You're not going to see them in a Better Homes and Gardens kind of a profile. And so what ends up happening is that the issue is these are polygamous communities, and they have really large families in some cases. And so in some of those circumstances, those bedrooms make a difference. If I've got 2 or 3 wives and I've got 10, 12 kids, 13 bedroom home is perfectly acceptable. And if I can buy it for $50 a square foot, I'm all over it, which is kind of what a lot of these homes have sold for. But the problem you run into is that there are not very many sales that you can point to. And in fact, the loan officer was making the accusation that we were discriminating on our fee because of the community. And I had to explain to her, I go, listen, I look at this from an opportunity cost basis. I look at it from the standpoint, how many traditional residential appraisals could I do in the time it will take me to do this? And I explained to him, I says, I could spend the rest of my life writing addendums explaining why the perfect 3 comps don't exist for this property. And we try to price it accordingly. But the issue that you run into is trying to deal with the impact of a large home with lots of bedrooms. And is there a market for it? In this community, there probably is. But you have to really know the markets and understand the impact of these designs in order to get a reasonable analysis to figure out what the market's doing for this stuff.
Going to have some trouble finding 13 bedroom comps, aren't you?
Well, not as hard as you might think.
Okay, that's an inside joke. Craig and I get that. Okay. Okay, Craig, we've talked about, what constitutes a bedroom, and the answer basically is nobody really has a clue. We've talked about the concept of functional obsolescence, putting up the bedroom on your own, or, okay, you've got a 5-bedroom house, but the market really is only looking for 3. So maybe there's a functional problem. We've looked at the concept of going out in the market and using comparable rentals to extract an adjustment for that extra bedroom or bedrooms. Let's get into another one of your areas of specialty in the fact that you are formerly a member, formerly the chair of the Utah Appraisal Board. When appraisers come up before you with problems like this, do they come up before you because they just didn't know what to do, or was it a function of they just decided to ignore the problem, hoping that it would go away?
Yes. Both of those.
Kind of narrows it down, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
kind of both. I think one of the problems that we have is that, and one of the mantra that I have always kind of held to is that no adjustment is an adjustment. And so the fact, I think there's some appraisers who have the idea that if I don't know the answer, then if I don't make an adjustment, I won't get in trouble. That is not true. I need to know my market, and I need to have a reasonable rationale that is supported by data. And so if I've got comps I put in hopefully more than 3 comparable sales into my analysis, especially if I'm trying to solve for the impact of bedrooms. If that's one of the reasons that GSEs are always trying to get us to bracket stuff, is they would like us to use data that will show, is the market responding in any kind of significant way for the difference in room counts, bedrooms, bathrooms, and so garages and lot size and all those things. And if we are able to go through and solve for most of the variables, and the only significant variable is the bedroom count, and at the end there's no material difference, then I can reasonably go in and say the market just doesn't care. I've got 2 sales, one with 3 bedrooms, one with 2, and the price differential, once you've taken everything else into consideration, just isn't that significant. What it's basically telling me is that I've got enough borrowers of that to where that room count is not going to have a material impact on the price that someone's going to pay. But if I start looking at the data and I see these large differences, you can reasonably conclude that, hey, maybe that bedroom is what's driving that price differential, and I need to do a little deeper dive. Maybe I can go in and do a regression analysis. Maybe I can go and do, as we had suggested, a gross rent multiplier, see if the market's paying more for one versus the other, and extract an adjustment that way. But what oftentimes happens is we're in a hurry, and so we don't take that deeper dive into the analysis, and it sometimes gets us in trouble.
Now, Craig, I know that you have a company and that you've got some honeydews to get finished before that company comes. So we're going to end this interview here, although there are some more questions that we need to ask, and we'll get to those the next time. So Craig, again, let me thank you for your time and your expertise. Let me thank you for your care as well in formulating these answers, which are really informative. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Well, Tim, it's always a pleasure to spend time with you. Let's leave on a lighter note here. A while back, in today's world, branding is such a significant part of what we do in trying to establish ourselves as appraisers and our businesses and things. And I'm down in appraising an office building down in Las Vegas, and I walk into this room and it is chock full of Depends underwear. Well, this company is supporting, older clients and things. And I asked the little gal who's taking me through the building, I says, with branding being such a major issue, makes you wonder why they would label little kid diapers as Loves and Huggies, but if you're old, it's called Depends. He says, here's what I think the answer is. I think when you're a little kid and you foul your diapers, you still love them and hug them. But when you're old, it just depends on if you're in the will or not.
And Craig, let's see, you are past retirement age, aren't you? We both are.
Depends.
It just depends. There you go. All right, Craig.
You can cut that out if you want. But
no, we don't. Craig, that requires a technical skill that right now is beyond me. All right.
I can cut it out for you.
No, we're going to leave it in there. It's a good note to end on. All right, Craig,
okay.
Again, thank you. I appreciate it, and we will continue this conversation at a later time. So everyone, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. We've been with Craig Morley, excuse me, a mover and shaker. Craig's out of St. George, Utah. Does a lot of work in the Las Vegas area. And Craig, what is your company website?
You know, if you Google Morley and McConkie, Morley at McConkie's a good Irish name, McConkie. You'll find us. And if you end up wanting to see some of the YouTube, we do a few little YouTube things that are designed to kind of help appraisers deal with some of the appraisal adjustment and report writing issues. And if you just Google my name, Craig Morley Appraiser, you can probably find the YouTube channel will come up, and you can see some of the little tips and tricks that we're doing with technology and trying to use develop adjustments and things like that.
Okay, Craig, thank you. Appreciate it. And we'll be back to continue this conversation. Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay.